Call our meeting to order tonight. Renata, if you do the roll call, please.
Evans?
Here.
Gookin?
Yeah.
McEvers?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Wood?
Here.
English.
Let's please rise for the invocation. We have Pastor Mark McWhorter with the Church of the Nazarene with us tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll invite you to bow with me in a word of prayer this evening. God in heaven, we come before you tonight, and I pray that we would have a keen sense of awareness of your presence in that which you've created, including this place and in our own lives, God. I pray this evening for wisdom for our community leaders as they make decisions that affect the citizens of our community, Father. And especially today on this first day of school, God, I pray that you would be with our students, that you would be with our teachers, our administrative staff at all the schools in our community, God, that you would be with our school resource officers as they begin a new school year. Father, would you protect them? Would you provide for them? Would you help our schools to be places of safe learning for our young people, God? And that they would not just get through this year, but that this would be a year where they thrive and grow and where the citizens in our community grow as a result. We also are keenly aware of what's happening in our nation and in our world, God, and we pray especially for our healthcare system, for our hospital, for our nursing staff, our doctors, for those that are caring for the ill right now, God. We pray that you would be with them. We pray for solutions that may only be able to come from your hand, God, for healing, for relief. As these leaders make decisions tonight, God, I pray for them. I pray blessing on them. I pray for wisdom and discernment. I pray that this would be an evening where good things are produced for the community of Coeur d'Alene. We love you tonight. We thank you. Pray your blessing on this time. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Dan, if you lead us in the pledge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ready? Begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we don't have any amendments to the agenda, so we do have a proclamation tonight. And we have Luella. So Luella's with us. Come on up, and then I'll read the proclamation, and hopefully you'll have a message for us too. So come on up to the podium. Yep. So I will read the proclamation. It says, whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law. Whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. Whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. Whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designated September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Steve Widmeyer, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week.
Thank you.
And welcome, Luella. Do you have a message for us tonight?
No. Just thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
On behalf of Lieutenant George Farragut Chapter, the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution, we thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'll bring this to you.
Okay.
Okay, so we will move on to public comment. And Susie wanted to talk on the budget, but she also asked very politely if she could use the public comment portion to talk about the budget. And I said, certainly, Susie, you can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does this mean that Jeff will turn off the clock?
Depends on how nice you are.
Probably not.
It means you have 6 hours.
Oh, thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, good evening. I think this is my 19th or 20th time I've addressed the council with my concerns. I have read every line of the 116-page document, as I am sure each and every one of you has also done so. Let us begin. Fiscal 2021 accomplishments. Regarding Envision, it says to adopt comp plan prior to the end of the fiscal year, which is let me see if I can put this down. Which is arriving shortly. At what time do you intend to divulge the true contents of this 40-page document, which I'm sure each and every one of you has read thoroughly? This document will forever change the character of our stable, established neighborhoods by eliminating current zoning and increasing density and uses that may include commercial. The slogan should perhaps be, "There goes the neighborhood." My concern is that you might pass it with another lackluster Zoom meeting, which bypasses the true public hearing process. Or you might run another survey, which again bypasses the true public hearing process. Another issue, Coeur housing staff added neighborhood reps, according to 2030. One might wonder who they are and what are their responsibilities. My neighbors are unaware of the proposed comp plan details and would no doubt be dismayed to learn that the stable, established neighborhood in which they live just may be drastically altered without their knowledge. The city has done this once before. I think it important that the taxpayers are aware of the status the city seems to have endowed 2030. 2030 is a nonprofit whose books and actions are not available to the public scrutiny. The city has granted them the power to determine its future, despite being only an advisory group. They are not elected. I think it has perhaps become a shadow government, much the same as LCDC, with the exception that LCDC operates within the state regulations and its members are selected by the mayor and council. A couple of years ago, I commented to the council that development impact fees had not been updated for 14-plus years. I seem to remember asking staff if this was indeed a fact and received no response at that time. I later spoke to Troy, and he told me the city was waiting for the future comp plan. Guess it's coming. It could have been increased annually by a percentage, but not in this town. We are in a business building boom at absurd rates and no outrage by council members. Quite frankly, I believe the developers and commercial property owners must be very, very happy. Parks. It was nice to see one accomplishment was the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I would note that the city approved a master plan for Person Field years ago, but improvements have been few. There is irrigation now, which is nice. Thank you, Jeff. A storage shed and bathrooms that were unfortunately vandalized, and some trees planted, which come to mind. But the play equipment was thoughtfully donated, truly thoughtfully donated by the Coeur d'Alene Board of Realtors a number of years ago. This year, replacement bathrooms are budgeted for $300,000. Year after year after year after year, I ask, when will the remainder of the park-approved plans, you approved it, will be implemented? Now there's a new master plan. You didn't do anything with the old one. I want to know, when are you going to treat Person Field just like every other nice park in town? We are in a nice section of town. People want to live here. I sure hope there aren't other plans in mind. One might wonder. The Arts Commission, once again, it's time to the original intent of adding a maintenance account, which was not created as a money pot for parties, etc. It should be temporarily put on hold, as there is no reason for additional funding. I would hope, however, that you would maintain the sculpture out here. That's really tacky looking. The commission might consider a sculpture garden with rotating sculptures. It could be a destination and have an educational component as well, rather putting sculptures here and there, mostly downtown, where too many become invisible. In closing, this is a tough one for me. My experiences commenting at preliminary budget September hearings are actually an exercise in futility, yet I continue to take the time to study the document page by page, line by line, as I believe it is my responsibility as a citizen. Funds are there, and are spent, or they're not spent. In the city, money flows here and there, and it's somewhere it isn't. I still don't know what the city did with a few $100,000 earmarked for a dog park that never happened. I don't think anybody ever answered. But to continue, after all these years, I would note that rarely does anyone ever attend these meetings and comment. Hopefully it'll change. The lack of council responses are no surprise to me. It's the usual thing. By the time I get here, it's a done deal. We all know that. But I do it anyway, because maybe what I say resonates with one of you, or two of you, or three of you, or four of you, or all of you. And maybe you'll think about it. And maybe before you approve the money, next time, you'll ask some more questions. And maybe you'll get in touch, rather than a Zoom meeting, which is absolutely ridiculous, you'll actually get in touch with the public. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you need to do that. And you need to tell the public what's going on with that comp plan. They're going to be stunned to find out that zoning may be eliminated. They're going to be absolutely stunned. And they may wonder how much money has been lost by not increasing development impact fees over the last 14, 15, 16 years. They may just wonder about that. And they may wonder why nothing was done, and why didn't staff tell you? You know, these are questions that you guys should have been answering. And the response I got when I brought it to the attention of everybody with development fees was absolutely stunned silence. I mean, there was nothing. So, thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Susie.
And adieu.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to give public comments tonight? Come on up.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Don Mullen. I would like to talk in support of the approval of the assignment of the lease agreement from Neil and Ann Lunt to Brooks Seaplane LLC, Shane Rogers. As you know, 9/11 is approaching, 20th anniversary, and that changed everybody's lives quite a bit. Mine actually quite a bit, but what it did was it made airport access very hard for kids to get to, and but actually the general public. You know, they put fences up around all the airports. You have security and all that stuff now. So having a float plane down on a dock, in a public dock like that, will not only help kids and adults see what aviation it could be like or is like on that particular thing, and you'll have kids like going to the beach or something like that, and they'll see the airplane out there and they'll say, wow, that's pretty cool, you know, I'd like to do that, or whatever. There's a shortage of pilots and mechanics in aviation right now, and things like this will help the public understand what general aviation is about, and especially float plane flying. Also, Mr. Rogers has done a lot for the local aviation community here in Coeur d'Alene. He has middle school and high school kids come out to the airport on Saturdays for 3 hours of either an aviation ground school for pilots, or 3 hours of building an airplane out there right now for maintenance technicians, for kids to learn about that. And once they get 10 hours in of doing that, he gives them a free lesson with one of his instructors in one of his flight school airplanes. So he is very much, in my opinion, promoting aviation here quite a bit. Tourism here in Coeur d'Alene, and when I came here 3 years ago to look around, I just moved here about 6 months ago, and I saw the Brooks Seaplane sitting out there on that dock, and I thought, that is really cool. I mean, you know, this area, people come here for the outdoors, they come here for hiking and camping and fishing in the lake, you know, accessing the lake and everything like that. And to me, a float plane is the iconic symbol of all outdoor and backcountry activities. And to have a float plane down there on the dock, and the public area that it's in is like it'd be like the star on top of a Christmas tree, as far as I'm concerned. So, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had 30 seconds left.
Yeah. Anyone else wishing to come up and give public comment tonight? Okay, if not, we will move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement tonight? Kiki?
Just wanted to share that the Historic Preservation Commission did have a public open house, and they sent the Historic Preservation Plan off to the state to be approved. That's going to come back to council to have any amendments and changes and for final approval. And there's also going to be a presentation that will be given, so we'll get a deeper understanding of how that plan works and what it's all about. And the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership meeting was postponed because of Labor Day, but we'll be back on track next Monday.
Right, thank you. Anyone else have anything? I just wanted to mention, just briefly on this unfortunate COVID situation that we're in. Everyone's probably read that we got into a point of critical care in Panhandle Health District, which includes Kootenai Health. The numbers aren't good. We peaked in January of this year where we had 93 people hospitalized with 32 in ICU. And this morning's numbers, we have 108 in the hospital with 39 in ICU. It's a critical time for us, and I just want to ask each and every one of you to just try to do your part so we can get through this. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that. Woody, consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of the consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 21053.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
Motion carried. We'll move on to General Services Public Works item. This is resolution number 21-054, approval of the assignment of lease agreement from Neil and Ann Lunt, doing business as Brooks Seaplane Service LLC, to Shane Rogers, doing business as Scenic Adventures Flights LLC. And Troy has a report for us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, the history of Brooks Seaplane has been at the City of Coeur d'Alene leased dock bay number 5. We go back over 30 years, and it has been an attraction to our community and our area alike. Shane Rogers, who is with us here tonight, is purchasing the business from Ann Lunt and wants to carry on this tradition. Mr. Rogers is an experienced pilot who operates a flight school at the airport, and he is having a new float plane built, and it's nearly done. So this lease is current on its payment. Mrs. Lunt took care of that. The lease period is April 1st through March 31st, and it is paid through 2022. The rental fee currently is $7,193.46. There is an annual increase on that based on the Consumer Price Index for the Western region, which is classically pretty typical in our lease arrangements. And there is a fee that is paid in the lease of 2% that goes to the Department of Lands, so that we can use that and continue to supply money to that department. So the existing lease is in place. You took action on that back in April of 2018 for 5-year period. It ends March 31st of 2023, thus the assignment that we are looking at here tonight. The lessee may request in writing a 5-year extension of this agreement for that period going forward by submitting to the city a written request for extension after April 1st, 2022 and prior to September 1st the same year. The assignment of the lease is for the remaining initial term, and the assignee will be entitled to request that extension. Mr. Rogers has provided all the documents we are looking for, including insurance necessary to operate the business. So this comes to you tonight, and I could stand for any questions, or we could have Mr. Shane Rogers come forward to answer anything you might have about the business.
Council questions for Troy? If there aren't any questions, we'll be looking for council action.
Wait. Excuse me, I did have a couple questions.
Okay.
And I brought this up at General Service, Public Works. So it came for council just because the questions that I had were that at one point I'd had questioned whether a lease could be sold as a business asset on public property. And I don't know that we ever fully resolved that question because the lease can be requested to be extended, but it's not guaranteed to be extended for that second 5-year period. And so I don't know if we concluded that. And the other thing was that I wanted to make sure the public was getting what they bargained for. I have been in Brooks Seaplanes before. I think they're fabulous. I agree with this comment. They are an iconic part of downtown Coeur d'Alene. People remember it from their childhood being there. And that's not the point. The thing that I had run across and was questioning is that this is now turned into feels like a different type of operation with a larger plane and evening flights and flight school on the water and things that I just wasn't clear of, and they weren't included in any description in the lease. So I didn't want to set us up to be committing to something that isn't what the community was used to and would be expecting.
So, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, we could bring the operator forward to answer that second portion. And then if the first portion, I would suggest when we looked at this arrangement, as Brooks Seaplane was being sold a couple years ago, there was an SBA loan in there. And we heavily looked at that because you can imagine as a lender, they would be looking at making sure there was access for a location of a seaplane on a lake to do the business. It wasn't directly tied to it, but it made good business sense to go into a 5-year arrangement so as to help with an SBA loan, help with the owner to know that they had some type of access to the water to do that type of business. So your question was really, can we contract public property for a business? And I would say this is our best viable way to do it, is in a lease that has a renewal option.
Yes, Troy, the question too, and maybe we would ask Mike this, is that in the lease, if the lease has an assignment provision, that lease can be assigned if there's any dealings between the current leaseholder and who the lease is assigned to, that's really outside of the city's purview.
Right, we've got the lease, and so it's an asset that if they're buying, they're taking the risk that it gets renewed or it doesn't get renewed. So I don't know how they valued that when they did that transaction, but that's really not our business. It's something that is already under lease, and they can do with it, assign it as they're asking now.
So there is language in the lease that it can be assigned.
You know, Mayor, I was looking in here, I don't have the lease in front of me, so I can't say that, but I think there is, because we looked at it earlier.
And then whoever takes control of that lease is bound to operate under the conditions of that lease.
And the city has the opportunity to review that as we're doing today.
Yeah. So I don't know if it wants to add anything to that or not.
Thank you, sir. Hi, I'm Shane Rogers. The new leasee, I suppose, is how that is. So to answer some of your questions and concerns there, I think some of the articles that you've wrote or read, some of that's been taken out of context. I've got a lot of aviation things going on, as it was pointed out by the gentleman in the audience. That was great. At the airport as well as here. So to kind of reiterate and give you my vision of Brooks Seaplane and to keep it there is that's been a staple in the community since 1946, and really prior to that by Mr. Wallace. Bill Brooks partnered into that in 1946, so it's been around forever, kind of doing all of the same things that have always been done and what I'm planning on doing. I watched the video from the last meeting, so I'll address some of those comments I think that you had there. Is a sunset flight was always just the last flight of the day. There's been that sunset flight, which isn't really sunset. We've got to be down and put away before sunset, but we've had a sunset flight forever. I mean, there's a book written, not associated with Brooks, but by a Mr. Tom Emerson, It's a great book that talks exactly on that. July 4th of 46, he flew from sun up to sundown. That last flight of the day in the book that's what it was considered, was a sunset flight. So historically, there's always been a sunset flight. It's just called that. I mean, you're going to have people that maybe want to propose or want to see Coeur d'Alene from the sky when the sun's going down, that it's a pretty beautiful sight. So to address that, there won't be any change in the flights. I mean, I'm down to the exact same route and the exact same schedule that's been ran there historically forever with the same type of plane. I've got a 1954 de Havilland Beaver. It's the same plane that's been there since the 90s, with the same size and the same thing. Now I think there was some talk, and I had been interviewed, and we have a local company here in Sandpoint that builds the Kodiak Quest. It's about the same size airplane as a Beaver. It's a newer technology aircraft, but it's still a single engine. It really replaced that in that type of thing. In a long-term 5 or 10 year program, would it be cool to have a airplane like that? Absolutely. This has been a monumental financial task for myself and my family to make this happen. It's not something that's inexpensive. I mean, the airplane and the insurances and everything that goes into it is a huge amount of money for myself. I really, really have studied the history of what Brooks Seaplanes has always been, and I really strive to keep that for the community and giving everybody the experiences. I've had the phones transferred over to my cell phone for 2 or 3 months now, and daily I get calls from people that have taken this flight. I don't know how many of you guys have, but it sounds like most of you guys have taken this flight, from second, third, and fourth generation now. People asking, "I'm in town, I want to ride. When can we do this?" I mean, it is as much of a staple as logging in this community and the lake and the haggadons and everything else here. It's been here and done it, and I don't want to change any of that. It's not going to be a big commercial operation. We've got a small footprint in a very special location to be able to do what we can do safely and operate and operate an airplane off of there. And there's not going to be any change that the community would see or that I anticipate ever doing, just because of, there's been 2 planes operated out of there historically for a long time. I mean, they had the 206 for smaller flights in the morning historically, and then the Beaver for larger flights in the afternoon. And right now, financially, I can only afford the Beaver, and that's what everybody wants to see, a big radial engine, Beaver that makes the noise that we're all accustomed to flying over downtown and hearing around the lake. At a future date, hopefully in a couple years, once my wife allows me to buy another airplane, if that ever happens, I'll get something else on a smaller scale to put down there for the smaller flights.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to answer and clear up some of those questions. It is part of the fabric of our summers here in Coeur d'Alene, and so I just think making sure we understand how that lease is and discuss the risks and investments, and the public is going to get what they had bargained for. I appreciate your time being here.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions I can answer for anybody?
I think that's good. Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, if there are no other questions or discussion, we get council action, please.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor, motion to approve Resolution 21054, which is approving agreement of lease agreement with Neil and Ann Lunt, DBA Brooks Seaplane Service, LLC, to Shane Rogers, DBA Scenic Adventures Flights, LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Coogan,
Yep.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on, we have County Code Adoption for Spokane River and Enforcement Contract. This is Council Bill number 21-1020. Approval of the amendment to the Municipal Code Section 42020B, restrictions on the use of waterways within the city, Spokane River, to state the restrictive speed limit in designated areas be 5 miles per hour or create a wake no more than 4 inches, whichever is less, and include definitions of excessive wake, no wake zone, and wake. And Troy is going to explain all of that to us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of our good friend, Mr. Greenwood, I have this opportunity. So really, this is a cleanup of language as the city continues to push its boundaries. So the city previously adopted speed restrictions for vessels on Lake Coeur d'Alene, thus the reason that this comes to you in the form of a resolution and a council bill. So within the city limits. On September 20th of 2016, the city annexed Blackwell Island. At the same time, the city annexed a portion of the Spokane River south of the US 95 bridge to the mouth of the river. And so there was 158 acres that came in. So the current speed restrictions don't match up with the counties. And to put it simply, we rely on the county to enforce those regulations on that water body. So as you can see, we have a collision course for being able to write a ticket on waterways that are in the city due to annexation. The county's done some good work along the Spokane River, and our goal here, and the mayor read all those changes, is to match this up with county ordinances so that our sheriff's department can write tickets and enforce the rules, which we believe are good rules. We are just a little bit behind, and simultaneously have them do it at no cost to the city. And we're looking to have them sign that agreement as well. So I would stand for any questions, but it's really a cleanup because we do not have any boat that is doing law enforcement at this point, and the fire boat is designed for fighting fires. So,
Council questions for Troy?
Mr. Mayor, just a thought that we have talked about before. Maybe it's just me who talks about it. When I was a policeman, sure would be nice to have our own jet ski and maybe have some of our officers doing enforcement. But this is a standard MOU that we've utilized many times with the county, so I don't have any questions.
Are you kind of mad that you didn't have
Yeah.
a jet ski when you were there?
Really mad about
Get
it.
one now.
Yeah. All right, so we're looking for council action. We have one piece of business first, and then we move on to the rest of it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 211020 once by title only.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please, Renata.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Of course.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. Renata, if you'd read the title, please.
Council Bill number 21-1020, an ordinance amending sections 4.20.010 and 4.20.020B of the Municipal Code of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, establishing and modifying speed restrictions on the Spokane River within city limits, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for the publication of a summary, and providing for an effective date.
And the next piece of business.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to adopt Council Bill 211020.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans, excuse me,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. Now we'll have resolution number 21-55. This is approval of agreement with Kootenai County for law enforcement protection for the portion of Lake Coeur d'Alene and the Spokane River to enforce the city ordinance. Troy?
a
Anything
good
for-
agreement at no cost that's been ongoing, and we'd like to keep it going that way until we can afford jet skis or something fun like that, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for Troy on that? So again, we'd be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 21-055, approving an agreement with Kootenai County for law enforcement protection for portion of Lake Coeur d'Alene and the Spokane River to enforce city ordinances.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Renata?
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Motion carried. Now, on other business, we have resolution number 21-056, approval of amendment to the contract with Vertus for the construction of the Fireboat Garage Station 5 and spending authority of $565,000 from impact fees and funds from Ignite Coeur d'Alene. Kenny?
I was kind of hoping Troy would just stay up here and just keep rolling, because this
On a
is the
roll.
Troy Tymerson show tonight, so that's what I was hoping for. Mayor and Council, good evening. Last time I sat in front of you talking about this, I hoped I never got to come up and talk to you about this, but here we are. We have run into some pretty significant issues in engineering and in getting material, and what we've found is to build the float system for what they consider a Class 4 building, which is an emergency building, a fire station, was a little more in-depth than everybody thought it was. So we've had to go back and forth, find engineering outside of Coeur d'Alene to engineer the float system as well as the anchor system, and from that we've had a significant change in the price to the sum of $556,000. The good news is, we do have engineer plans. We do have plans to the dock builders to get this done. We do have a building permit, and we do have what we hope is a final cost, and we do have funding from Ignite to bridge that gap. So what we're asking for tonight is the ability to, have the budget authority to go to that $565,000. We have a little more in there because I really, really, really don't want to come back again and ask for more money. And the fact that we need to have a new agreement with Virtus for that price. They are online to getting materials ordered right now. As you know, that is not a simple ordeal right now to get that. The metal is the big issue, and we are working with North Harbor Marine, and they are working to get that done as we speak. I will stand for any questions.
Questions for Kenny? I do know that you and Lucas have worked very, very hard for a long, long time on this, and it gets down to that when you're building a building for public safety, you take extra measures to make sure that everything is just right. It's not like building just a residential boat garage, right?
That's true.
There are a lot of different steps because you're talking about public safety.
And we learned that there's a new system out there called C-Flex that will cost us $110,000 just for the anchor system, and that is actually designed for tidal waters. So they have to design this to a 100-year storm. So we have to have a system where the boat house can actually go up and down on its own. And that is where we just hit these incredible snags on the engineering and actually what the bottom of the lake does. So here's where we're at. Everything's approved, thank goodness, and
Kenny, do you have a construction schedule?
Lucas is waiting on that right now.
Okay.
They were hoping to get some stuff started this month, but again, we're waiting on when the metal gets here. And Lucas, they said probably 90 days at the most once they get started.
Yes.
So once they go, it'll go quick. But it's just a matter of getting everything sitting right in front of us.
Okay.
And I do want to thank Lucas. He has worked so hard on this and learned stuff he never thought he'd have to learn, but he's doing pretty well.
Council questions for Kenny? Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kenny, what will be the lifespan once it all falls into place, Station 5, which we completely, totally need, but what's the lifespan?
It's all built out of metal, so that's a really good thing, and we did that specifically. So they haven't given me an exact lifespan, but they want it to be there for 50, 60 years.
Thank you.
Dan?
Just a curious question. Will there be room in the garage for these power boats the police department apparently wants?
Actually, don't laugh, because in the back, we did design it so we can have a little davit system to put our little boat on there, so I'm sure we can find room for these jet skis.
Very good.
Very good, thank you.
You're a good fire chief.
Yes.
Teamwork.
All right. If there aren't any
That's how it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
if there are any further questions, we'd be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve Resolution Number 21-056, approving an amendment to the contract with Verdes for the construction of the fireboat garage, Station 5, and spending authority of $565,000 from impact fees and funds from Ignite CDA.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Lucas. So we move on to our public hearing tonight. This is a legislative hearing. This is the annual appropriations for fiscal year 2021, 2022, and the reserve the right to recover the current year's foregone increase of $700,000 and $738. Troy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are looking forward to a new fiscal year, and with the multiple workshops you've been through, combined with the work of staff and especially Comptroller Vonnie Jensen and her team, we bring before you tonight a balanced budget for the next fiscal year that is proposing 0% increase in property taxes that the city of Coeur d'Alene can take, which equals 3% of the greatest amount of property taxes we've taken in years gone by. So it doesn't mean that people's property taxes would go up 3%. It's a number that you're proposing not to take that would equal a 3% increase. As you look at this, I think you should be very proud of the stewardship that you have. There are a lot of zeros up there. Not every community can show 0% property tax increases over this number of years. So pat yourselves on the back and thank you for being stewards of our property tax dollars. I would suggest to you, you don't hear that very often, so I will do it tonight. New construction. It is a proposal to you to take the $315,941 that you have eligible from growth year over year. Our legislators allowed you to take less than what we normally would have taken, and so we are suggesting to you that you have continually done is to take what we call new growth. That's new property tax revenue to the city. However, as you look at this, and you've looked at it many times, this is quite a bit less than what we've seen in the past. Had we not had a reduction from our legislature, Vonnie had it almost down to the dollar until we got a haircut, we should say. Part of the reason in doing this is the fact that you have held, and we continue to believe we will have a strong fund balance. In the event that the year ends up perfect, we would have $8.5 million at the end of this fiscal year. Thanks to the directors that are in the back of the room and a comptroller, will probably be better than that. The good news is that you have 18% of your annual expenses in cash ready for a rainy day. I would call it fund balance. 2 months worth at the city where we are at this size would be $7.7 million. If I take that to a personal level, most financial planners would tell you to have 3 months worth of cash on hand for what your operating expenses are. We're a little bit less than that, but we're a pretty big operation.
Anyone have 3 months? Sitting on?
And you have 3 months in your wallet.
We're showing you a $3.1 million increase in general fund revenues. That is very significant for us, and that is a true sign of what we have been doing as a city, taking 0%, but having a very healthy state in which we're doing business. We also have a challenge in the fact that $1.2 million is coming from fund balance to fund operations in the next year. We agreed upon that in order to look to the future as the Lake District closes and what we'll be able to do. But the bottom line here, increase in state funding. That's why we're proposing a 0% property tax increase for our constituents. Remember, a year ago, you reduced property taxes in the city of Coeur d'Alene by $5,500,000. And so levy rates will be changing because we're going to ask to replace that. But you took one-time money as stewards of our dollars, chose to accept that and lowered property taxes directly and also took a 0%. So the state is doing well, the city is doing well, and we did everything we could to keep property taxes down. $3.1 million increase in the general fund is very sizable. These are what you didn't have a lot of choices in: merit increases, COLA increases, 1% wage adjustment in public safety, health insurance, small increase. If we could continue that, life would be very good. And you have $753,000 in additional staffing. Increase to services and supplies, and a small increase in capital. These are the new positions proposed in the budget, funded with 0% increase in property taxes. You've seen this a number of times, so I could go on and on, but you know it. This is what we propose in capital purchases to be done this year, includes police vehicles, station flooring. If all goes well, we'll get that paid in a different way, but right now it's in our financial plan. We're going to keep the used surplus equipment, police building chiller. Now that it's cooling down, this is a great time to work on chillers because we don't need it right now, and a proposed building maintenance item at 414 Fort Ground Way. I would entertain any questions.
Questions for Troy, council? I will add something is that, once again, that there is talk of the legislature making changes to our budget. And, they made changes to our budget without, I don't think anyone knowing what our budget even was, right? So we took, what was it, Troy, about a $50,000 haircut on new growth that we weren't allowed to take. So they're choosing to meddle in local issues rather than have our local citizens and our local voters decide that. Now I hear of talk that they want to come, and this was the quote that I got, because Boise has such a high fund balance, we want to restrict fund balances of all municipalities and counties in the state because of Boise, right? I think our citizens and our voters should decide our finances and what our level of property taxes are. I don't think it should be dictated to us from legislators from Boise. So I just wanted to give a heads up that I think that that's coming at us in January, and I think we have to be very vocal that, you know what, we can take care of our business here in Coeur d'Alene with the way that our citizens want. So I just wanted, I'll get off my soapbox, but I wanted to make that very well known. So questions for Troy on this? So if there aren't any questions, we'd be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to...
Excuse me, Mayor, I believe it's a public hearing.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. I've only been doing this 7.5 years. Troy, do you have, I guess when Susie had her piece, I forgot all about was the sign-up sheet. Is there anyone? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on the budget? We'll put this out there for public comment. We'll open the public comment section of that. Okay, seeing no one in the audience that wishes to give public comment, I'll close the public comment portion. And now, thank you for reminding me of that, I will look for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 211021 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kukin?
Aye.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried. Renata, if you could read the title, please.
Council Bill Number 21-1021, an ordinance entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, appropriating the sum of $109,700,500 to defray the expenses and liabilities of the City of Coeur d'Alene for said year, levying a sufficient tax upon the taxable property within said city for general revenue purposes for which such appropriation is made, levying special taxes upon the taxable property with said city for special revenue purposes within the limits of said City of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, providing for severability and providing for an effective date hereof.
And then you have the second part of that.
I'd like to move to adopt Council Bill 201021.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I also wanted to just thank you for all the work you've done. You did incredible amount of work. And for the entire 2 terms you've been here, you have really been on the budget. And I do appreciate that from everyone and the taxpayers as well. It's an incredible job, as well as staff this time looking for those extra funds. But even though we're taking 0, I just want to give everyone a heads up. Because of that $5.5 million we took last time, property taxes are going up. I just wish that those legislators, the ones you were talking about earlier, would actually call us and talk to us about what would help because it's all based on assessments, you know that. And as though you saw the list of zeros up there, as long as we've been fighting for this, my property taxes have gone up dollar-wise, but as a percentage of what I pay based on my evaluation, it's gone down. So I wish they would see it from that perspective. But thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you. When we talked a lot about assessments last year when they went into session, before they went into session. They worked on it for months and months before they went into session. And we communicated with them that it was all about the assessments. And the rising residential assessments were causing a tax shift from commercial property to residential property. We said that many, many times, and we were just simply ignored. Now, all of a sudden, the bright light came on. It's, oh, well, maybe we need to talk about assessments, possibly. So it's a frustrating deal. Any questions for Troy? So roll call, please, Renata.
Gookin,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers.
Yes.
Motion carried, and I specifically want to thank Vonnie and her staff for all the work that they put in. They start in, gosh, your work probably starts up here again in a few months for next year, Vonnie, and I appreciate, this is my 8th budget, and I appreciate all the work that Vonnie and her team has done, and Troy as well. So it's a team effort to put together the budget, and I know council has worked hard on it too. So I'm very proud of the budgets that we've put forward for the last 8 years. So thank you. Final piece of business here is resolution number 21-057. This is reserving the right to recover the foregone increase in the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget in the amount of $700,738 pursuant to Idaho Code 63802. Troy.
Mayor and council, thank you for your work on this. This is a new, we've been doing it a couple of years now, a new piece of legislation that says you need to bring forward a resolution. That dollar amount is exactly the property taxes that you are choosing not to take. I think it is a badge of honor to say that you would not take $700,738 from our taxpayers and would add that to a taxing authority. It's not money in the bank, unfortunately. And it would take you to over $7 million in property taxes that have not been taken over the years. It is just taxing authority. It's not real money. The only time in the last, maybe our history, we took foregone was when we started the ADA sidewalk program as per a good attorney, great attorney that brought that forward and said we need to do work on that. And that $200,000, if I remember correctly, is the only time we've taken foregone taxing authority, which turns out to be whole dollars. So this is the way to memorialize what you're doing here tonight.
Questions for Troy on this? And this is something new. Is this the second year we've had to do this?
I believe it is second.
Any questions for Troy?
Now, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 21-057, reserving the right to recover the foregone increase in the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget in the amount of $700,738 pursuant to Idaho Code 63802-1F.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to vote against this. I voted for it last time because I was unsure of the money we were receiving from the government. In case that dried up, we would have to have the authority. But my opinion is that, foregone is just, it's the sword of Damocles over every single taxpayer here who doesn't realize they have this obligation that we can go after them. I don't think we ever will. But I think if the legislature wanted to clean up again something about property taxes, they could put a lid on this. So I will end my rant.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just disagree with my friend Dan here, that because we are using so much of our fund balance for this year's budget, I think it's just prudent that we reserve the right to foregone in case there were ever kind of emergency that we had to.
Thank you, Christy. Mr. Mayor, can I ask Troy, what is our foregone total that we have for authority?
That's $7 million.
$7 million.
$7 million. Okay, so, all right.
And that
If you
is
approve this.
either the first or the second highest total in the state of Idaho. right now, currently.
One or two, yep.
All right, if there isn't any further discussion, roll call, please.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Gookin votes no.
Motion carried. I do want to add that I think it's the last 2 or 3 years, I think that Susie, through all the budget hearings we have, has been the only person that's come up and commented. There hasn't been anyone else comment on the budget. She tries her darndest to come across as mean and cranky and stuff like that. That is
But we all know her.
Right? If you go back in the history of planning in Coeur d'Alene, she's worked very hard on it. And she says some things that I could debate her on, but I don't, out of just pure respect that she did her homework and she comes out here and, she's not feeling the greatest. She has a broken foot and she's struggling a little bit, but she made her way here to talk about the budget. So I think that is very commendable. All right, so we have a last piece of business. Woody, I think you can take care of this last piece of business, can't you?
We would love to bring this meeting to an end and adjourn, please.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.